Good morning and welcome back for the second episode in our webinar series for Skybound Wealth Management Saudi Arabia. For those of you who didn't manage to see the first episode, please do feel free to go back and watch that one, where myself and Campbell will cover a little bit on what it is we do and why we're working with expats in Saudi Arabia. For those of you who were here last time, welcome back. Lovely to see you again. My name's Callum Murphy. I'm a senior financial planner here at Skybound Wealth Management, and I head up our Saudi Arabia desk.
I'm Campbell, Warnock. Thank you for tuning in. I'm also too a financial advisor here at Skybound Wealth Management, part of the Saudi Arabia team. Today's episode, we're diving into one of the most exciting and ambitious national transformation plans the world has ever seen. We are, of course, talking about MBS's Vision 2030.
Yeah, there's a lot happening under this plan, isn't there, Campbell? It's quite an exciting thing to watch. We've got futuristic new cities being built. We've got new industries emerging. How realistic is it all?
Yeah, and let's also talk about what it's like on the ground. So let's start, Callum. Let's unpack what Vision 2030 is all about. So, Callum, I know most of us would have seen the headlines, but how would you describe Vision 2030 in a nutshell?
Well, big picture, it's Saudi's shift away from oil dependency. Right, they know whilst there's probably enough oil to last them several years beyond 2030, they want to bring their economic reliance away from that. So it was started in 2016 by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and it's really focused on three pillars. So they want to build a vibrant society, they want to build a thriving economy, and it's really all based around an ambitious nation.
Am I right in saying it's not just about the economics, though? It's about tourism, recreation, sport?
Yeah, they want to diversify the economy, but it's also about modernising the kingdom, making it a nicer place to spend time, and also changing how the locals spend some of their time.
Now, obviously, the Crown Prince, MBS, is the man leading the charge. He's the headline figure, but who else is executing this behind the scenes, Cal?
Well, all of the financial muscle behind it is coming from the PIF. So you've got other companies that have been started and funded by them. So the likes of your NEOM, your Qiddiya, your Red Sea will all be PIF funded if you trace that money back.
And I also think it's worth noting that while the PIF are pumping in the money initially, I think part of the plan is to get far more private investment, to get some investment from global companies.
Yeah, and I think the investment side from private and foreign investors is still a little bit slower than they would have liked. But certainly a lot of the work is being done by foreign companies. You've got your big contractors, the likes of Mace and your WSP, who have got offices on the ground in Riyadh now, but originally a lot of their colleagues, their employees have moved over from the UK.
You're right, and I also think we're seeing a little bit of a shift from where most global companies would have their Middle Eastern headquarters in Dubai. We're now slowly seeing that move to Riyadh.
Yes, certainly. So Campbell, let's talk a little bit about then the projects that are actually happening. Where are the projects that you've spoken with clients, or that you have clients? What do you spend most time talking about, looking at, and what is it that stands out to you?
Okay, I think one of the projects that excites me the most, and certainly where I've got a number of clients, is the NEOM project. Okay, This was the 500 billion mega project, right? Within that you had the line, okay, that was originally meant to be 110 miles long, going all the way to the Red Sea, which yes, has been scaled down slightly, but also you have Trojena, the desert ski resort, okay, which sort of raises eyebrows. And then you've also got Oxagon, which is the floating port that's designed to make imports, exports, and global trade a little bit easier. All right, and then to finish, you have the Sindala, which is the private island golf resort. for me, as a keen golfer, that always sort of grabs my attention. I've played numerous places around the world, but never on a private island. Don't think there's been many rounds played on it yet, Callum, but certainly something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean the Sindala project looks insane, right? It's it's certainly ambitious, going with one of the pillars that that MBS put out there at the very start. And Trojana's probably not far behind it, right? In its ambition, it always, as you mentioned, raises eyebrows. I talk to people about Saudi Arabia and they immediately talk about the heat. They talk about a 50-degree desert. No one's expecting, when you talk about Saudi Arabia, for you to then progress that conversation to talk about a ski resort, are they? I mean, Neom on the whole, as you brought it up, it is just an impressive project by its sheer scale, without going into the luxury or how well they're doing it, how big these events are likely to be. I think just the project and the company itself, they've got compounds for their staff which are the size of towns in the UK. They've got thousands of people living on site, all working on this one giga project.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see, and I think to go back onto the Trojana project, I've actually agreed to host the 2029 Asian Winter Olympics. Talk about ambition. In terms of other projects that I have clients on and I've been dealing with a lot, is one that comes to mind is the Red Sea project down in Jeddah, which is sort of 50 luxury resorts, all focused on sustainability and ecotourism.
Yeah, and you've also then got Qiddiya, right, the entertainment capital. I know both you and I have got clients working on that project at the moment. That's due to have everything that you could possibly want when it comes to recreation in Saudi Arabia, which is probably what the country has lacked most, right? And what has stunted its tourism a little bit up to now. But it's due to have motorsport, it's going to have theme parks, it's going to have other sporting events being hosted there, art exhibitions. It really does look like they are modernising the area and going to be bringing a huge amount of tourism in as a result of that.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point you touched on the modernisation of Saudi Arabia, but MBS is still aware of the culture and the traditions of Saudi Arabia. So if you look at the Diriyah Gate project, which is all to sort of focus on the heritage and what makes Saudi Arabia. And then you've also got the New Maraba, which is a very, very ambitious project. That's going to be the sort of new downtown of Riyadh. It's going to be the trendy place to go. So yeah, on a whole, there's nowhere else in the world like it where there's such a variation of projects on the go.
Of course, it's not all smooth sailing in Saudi Arabia, right? Whilst these are significantly sized and ambitious projects, they don't come without their challenges. What challenges have you seen most with the clients that you've been working with and speaking to out there?
Yeah, Callum, I suppose it is no secret that the Neom project is facing some delays. They've also had to scale back some of their targets as that it was initially marketed. All right, this is due to a number of factors, due to the spiralling costs and labour shortages. So while the ambition is still there, they might have just needed a slight reality check.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I don't think there's anything to worry about though, right? From those that I'm speaking with, they're still very much progressing with all of the projects that were initially set out. I think the ambition, the targets are, as you say, still there. I think they're just taking what were potentially some quite outrageous initial marketed expectations and scaling them down a little bit and almost doing them in stages now so that they can finish one project, start to use it and generate an income before they then start the next, as opposed to having a couple of hundred different projects on the go at once, all costing money whilst bringing in nothing.
Yeah, the latter certainly sounds a bit more sensible there.
Yeah.
So Cal, you and I are very lucky. We get to work with clients all over Saudi Arabia, and we get to visit them as and when we can. I know you were very recently out in Riyadh. What sort of feedback were you getting from clients, and how are they enjoying it?
It was mixed, right? The feedback I was getting, but all generally very positive. most of them are aware of some of the challenges we just spoke about, things being scaled down to some degree, but the work is very much still there, right? The projects are still being funded at an aggressive rate, and most companies, whilst as we say, some of the projects are slowing, are still struggling to keep up with the workload. The people I'm working with out there are doing long days on the days that they're working. They all seem very, very excited by the projects that they're working on. They all seem very positive about the way that things are developing out there and how different lifestyle is becoming, and the ease of living out there is changing.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking to my clients, the majority are very, very excited about the region and very, very exciting about the growth plans. You and I talk a lot about how fast things moves out in Saudi Arabia. From speaking to your clients out in the ground, are they seeing many day-to-day changes from, say, now to from the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, there's no one who I work with in Saudi Arabia that isn't aware of the changes, right? It's funnily, you could talk to our director, Peter, who was out in Saudi Arabia over a decade ago, and it was a completely different place when he was there. But like I say, even the expats who we work with, who've maybe been there 2 or 3 years, are seeing how much the city of Riyadh is coming on, but wider across Saudi Arabia, how much it is changing. You've started to see a lot of the almost tourist and recreation areas opening on a smaller scale. So a lot of your new developments where you've got your restaurants, your coffee shops. You've obviously over the last couple of decades had Al Faisalaya Tower was the first that went up with a big shopping centre under all of the office spaces. Obviously more recently you had Kingdom Tower built, which is now taller than the initial skyscraper, and that again comes with the Kingdom Centre at the bottom. So you've got the Four Seasons Hotel, you've got huge amounts of high-end foreign designer shops, you've got your restaurants, and all of your recreation is in there. So yeah, generally speaking, people you speak with are happier than they would have been if they were there a few years ago. I'm still not sure it's quite where people want it to be, but it's certainly on the way.
Yeah, I think it's certainly fair to say that the expats, they're no longer stuck in compounds and trying to get to Bahrain as quick as they can.
No, that's yeah, probably a shift we're seeing is more people happier.
Okay, Callum, as financial advisors, let's jump into the figures. Let's talk money.
Well, yeah, the project certainly isn't and was never expected to be a cheap one. I think the project on the whole, right, the whole Vision 2030, all of the projects included, is valued at around $1.3 trillion. As accurate as we can find the most recent published figure, I think so far they've spent 164 billion of that. Now, I imagine there'll be some additional spending that maybe hasn't been published as of yet. But yeah, an awful lot that's gone into it already, mostly on infrastructure.
Yeah, and judging by Trump's recent visit, it doesn't look like things are going to be slowing down on that front. Also, it's not just public money going into Saudi Arabia. We touched on that earlier. Is that right?
No, as we mentioned earlier on, it's still, I think the largest portion is still coming from the PIF. Right, they're putting the majority of the capital in, but we have started to see foreign investors getting involved now, generally through your private equity, your family offices, and your institutional investment. But yeah, there are sources coming from outside of Saudi Arabia, and in fact from outside of the Middle East.
Okay, Callum, what kind of impact are we seeing from foreigners, and what sort of foreign companies are coming into the region?
In short, a lot. Right, we're seeing a lot of UK businesses are already in Riyadh. we're also now seeing a lot of US businesses, European businesses. In fact, a lot of the Swiss companies that we used to work with clients at over in Geneva have now got offices in Riyadh themselves. Like I said, really setting up their regional HQs for the whole of the Middle East in Saudi Arabia rather than Dubai or Qatar.
Right. And tell me, what about the workers? What type of workers are we seeing?
Again, it's a mix. It's very industry dependent, but British expats who we work very closely with, there are huge amounts of moving over, both with UK companies and with other foreign businesses that they're working for in Saudi Arabia. Alongside that, we see a lot of Australian expats and quite a few Europeans. Primarily, I work with quite a few German expats who've moved in from the European side. And I think the bulk of that is that we're looking at a development region. It's a lot of construction that's going on, and UK, Australia, Germany, all very well known for engineering, building, health and safety, planning, development, and they're really being brought into those senior roles to oversee these projects in Saudi Arabia.
I'd like to talk a little bit of the demographic of expats that's moving out there. Of course, yes, we are still seeing the older generations moving out there, collecting their last few paychecks before retirement. But more interestingly, we're seeing more and more people younger, right? Not so much starting their career, okay, but early on in their careers, moving to Saudi for the long-term, opportunities and growth that they're seeing in the region.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that despite the targets that they've got in Saudi Arabia for Saudization, for having locals trained to do a lot of these roles, we're not seeing any slowing down of expats moving out there. If anything, I speak to more and more people every week, every month that are being transitioned out into roles in Saudi Arabia. And part of that being that our education system here in the UK and in the regions that we've mentioned, the US, Australia, Germany, are so highly regarded that the expectation is these people can move out there, they'll move into senior roles, and they're in a position that they can train and guide some of the local workers to be able to fulfill those roles at a later stage.
Yeah, they're really in a position to add a lot of value to the economy, and the MBS is certainly aware of that. So I think it's the tourist boom that's one of the biggest surprises for me and other people I speak to. This has been one of the big successes. They've already hit their target of 100 million visitors to the region 7 years early. All right.
Yeah, and I think that's in part and probably primarily due to the sporting events that they're hosting. You've obviously got the boxing, you've got Riyadh season out there, which has been huge. You've had WWE events, you've got the Saudi Pro League, which is talked about all the time now. They obviously took Ronaldo out there as a first big name. You had Gerrard move out there as a manager not that long ago. And then you've got other big names moving out, the likes of Sadio Mane and John Duran at Al Nassr. I had the pleasure of going to watch a game whilst I was out there. Unfortunately, Ronaldo didn't end up playing, but it was a big event. It felt quite exciting, like there's a positive shift to it. There were lots of Portuguese tourists there to watch who you imagine are there to see Ronaldo. You can understand why there are people going out there to watch such big scale events that they put on.
Yeah, and it's not just the sports mentioned. You've got your motorsports. The golf has been a huge one, both for the men and the ladies. When you look at the Live Tour, the Saudi Aramco specialist, I think it's fair to say there's not many live sports in the world that you couldn't watch at some time of the year in Saudi Arabia.
No, you're right. There's been some massive events already, and looking forwards, they've got even bigger plans, right? You've got the 2029 Winter Olympic Games that we've already spoken about. So all fingers are crossed that they get Trojena sorted and up and running in time, which I'm sure will now be one of the big focuses and priorities.
That was good to them.
Yeah. You've then got the 2034 FIFA World Cup. Again, They've got a lot of the stadiums and things in place for that already, but I know they've got big projects in play to make sure they've got the retractable roofs and all the conditions are perfect ahead of that. And then they've got Expo 2030 planned out there as well. So really are some huge milestones, some big international events scheduled. So final thoughts, is Vision 2030 working?
I'd say yes. I don't think there's anywhere more exciting and more ambitious in the world. Of course, it is still in its early stages. It's got momentum, but I think it'll take a little bit of time to see how deep the impact really goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely ambitious, right? For anyone watching with us today, for anyone who's already out working in the region, most people that we work with out there are working on something related to Vision 2030. It is certainly an exciting development to watch unfold.
So thank you for joining us. We'll be back soon with another episode. If you enjoyed that, please share or feel free to send it to a friend. It would be very appreciative.
Yeah, and as always, if you do have any questions, queries, whether you're already in Saudi Arabia or if you're planning to make the move soon, mine and Campbell's contact details will be shared below, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.